Hi, I'm Reverend Paula Skiles, minister of Unity Church of San Marcos. Thank you for being with me this morning. Let's imagine the Last Supper, where Jesus has already entered into Jerusalem, and the 12 disciples and Jesus are gathered around a table and they're having supper. But it's not like the one we see pictured. This is first century Palestine, and the room is very simple. There's a very low wooden table set in the center that holds the food. And Jesus and the 12 disciples are reclining. There are no chairs, and the floor is covered with reeds and cushions. And with an elbow, they recline on a cushion and use their other hand to take the food and eat it. And in this time, the rooms had very low ceilings and small doorways. And the houses were generally arranged around a shared courtyard. Let's imagine there are voices in the streets that surround this little courtyard and that come off of it. And there's Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic, and these are bumping into one another, all these voices. And some of them are friendly, but some of them maybe not so friendly. Children and people of all ages, adults, and probably a few religious conversations, you sort of maybe even pick up on some of that. So imagine with me that what we're hearing, though, is probably about more of life in general. Isn't that the way it is when we're getting together? Hey, what's going on? How are you? I know it's Passover, and there's this air of tradition that we have. It's very serious and everything. But I think that if you look at it, people are gathered around the water wells and they're catching up on the day's activities and the news. Those moments of everyday life, which is the title, Those Moments, to this message. And it's about beholding a greater reality. In the distance, we maybe hear some donkeys braying and the bleat of sheep and goats and clucking chickens for sure. They echo, and we can kind of hear them, can't you? And maybe even catch a small scent here and there. But there on the air is the traditional aromas of the baking bread and coriander, cumin, mint, and dill. And they just waft through the air. And on the wall, we probably see wineskins. And we can even probably still smell the fermenting grapes as they ignite our senses with the glow of the candle in this small room that gives us a view, a small window even, to the outside. I'd like to think at some point in this evening, Jesus is telling the disciples about how they have supported him and what they've meant to him and how much more meaningful his life has been because of their relationship and their willingness to follow the way. And Jesus talks to each disciple. Let's consider, if you can, for a moment, who in my life, in your life, represents those 12 disciples and their qualities. Who in your world is Peter or Simon or Judas? You and I don't navigate this world singularly, and there are individuals in our lives who have and do make up the disciples who walk with you and me through our own crucifixions and resurrections time and time again. So here's one idea of Jesus' conversation. Join me as we listen in. I look at you, John, and I just smile, chuckling inside for just a moment. There have been times when you seemed least like the others of our group. I know that sounds odd. So often you seem to fit in everywhere with strangers and friends alike. And yet at moments it's as though you simultaneously fit nowhere. There's really no way to say this other than to say that For me, you are love. You are so unique. You don't even think about it. There's nothing to decide. You are just love. And sadly, I think people so rarely experience the love that you embody that they don't know how to be around you. You don't discriminate. And you simply love for love's sake. You see everything, every fault, every lie, every hurt, every mistake, everything. And yet at the same time, you see it through the lens of love, and it is transformed, changing those moments so many of us wish we could take back. Because love sees more of things, it sees less. Your love drawing me to rest in the safety of you, to know my own healing and wholeness is a soft place for me to fall when my world is circling out of control. And I'm so grateful Philip brought you into my life, Bartholomew. And I probably haven't told you often enough. On numerous occasions, you have helped me see beyond what is right in front of me. Your capacity to imagine the unimaginable fascinates me and encourages me to do the same. And as you know, there have been times when I didn't understand why people just couldn't hear my message about abiding in a sense of heaven and having that as a way of life. You always make me laugh. I don't want to forget to tell you that. Sometimes it takes me a few minutes to catch up with that brain of yours and creating and giving shape to the sacred. Mostly what I'm grateful for is your capacity to shape and form God into what the world needs most: compassion, support, love, silliness, kindness, courage, enthusiasm, and so many more. You remind me of the infinite possibilities of good, the good life, eternally present, molded and shaped from body, mind, and spirit. That's who you are in my world. Whenever I get ready to speak with you, Philip, I find myself taking a deep breath, which makes and brings to me a sense of being grounded, of standing on a solid foundation. That simple act of a slow, deep breath before I speak is the symbol of you for me, Philip. Through this short time we have known each other, I have watched you come to truth. Slowly, like a long inhaling of your lungs. But even when you don't recognize truth staring you in the face, you still take life and make space for it to germinate. Then I see it, and your face changes as you continue to breathe slowly. I see you awaken to the power that you are by harnessing all the life energies within yourself. Then comes your voice, filled with what you have just realized. And myself and others are captivated. You amaze me and take my breath away. Once harnessed, you have an uncanny ability to direct it with a laser-like focus and bring forth good. Your presence reverberates with this as possibly the greatest creative power in our lives. Now this may sound strange, James, son of Zebedee, but one of the things I noticed when I met you was what I call an eternal house of light within you. This light guides you in right judgment, regardless of the circumstances. Your ability to turn within and listen to that still, small voice amazes me. I find myself listening for those moments when you share the depth of your understanding of life. Few grasp this knowledge, for it's not intellect. It doesn't come from the mind. It is an outpicturing of your living heart. And each time you speak from the heart, you leave echoes of perfection that gently land on other people's hearts, uplifting them, while also lighting the path for those who are lost. I love this most about you. Do you see this for yourself? I hope you do. You have acted with great intuition, with right seeing and knowing, always discerning what our eyes, beyond what our eyes see. Thomas, you have such a reputation. Did you know most people see your questioning as a lack of faith? But I don't, and I never have. I have always believed you were exceedingly curious and have a very strong desire to know yourself and the world in a more profound way. That requires questioning. How else can you understand and comprehend and perceive the world rightly without questioning? A little skepticism is very good for understanding and speaks to your wisdom. I love your interrogations or debates, as other members have come to call them, because they inspire me to see the world through another's eyes. For the kingdom of heaven to unfold, we all need to be able to stretch, to see with new eyes, and to take in all that is happening. And not with just our five senses, but with our heart and mind too. So over the years, there have been many times I've listened deeply to your doubts and fears, and my heart has been heavy because you have felt so discouraged. But I also see that no matter what is happening around you, you never question our two great commandments. May you always demonstrate childlike curiosity, because I see that it always leads you to those still waters of knowing the peace, even beyond fear, the peace that passes all human understanding. Like John, I have a Cheshire cat grin whenever I look at you, Simon, and even if you're not around and someone mentions your name, a chuckle emerges from within me. You're like that one child who can't sit still, and yet who can get annoyed over your fierce expression and zeal of spirit. Sometimes intense, yes, but I love your fiery passion for life. Never have I met someone with a greater capacity for diving into the day and accomplishing what it is that you need to get done. You have gifted me with an immeasurable awakening to the fires that burn behind the words of truth that we share with other people, and the truth that is in evidence when we respond to those in need. Those fires call us into action and motivate us and move us. Action that is no different than the winds and the tides and the storms that move the earth. You are the quintessential force that is for good, that moves people, urging us to spring forward and accomplish, which seems like miracles, but for you it's just another day. I marvel at how you stir my heart. My gentle, humble friend Thaddeus, ever faithful to what is true, good, and beautiful. Your resolve to say no, to renounce and eliminate being stuck in the ways of the world just because they're comfortable, shows your willingness to do the will of God. Your presence affirms that I have the power to let go, to make changes so that a new way of being can emerge. And do you know how healing that is? There is no haughtiness or arrogance in you. You simply recognize when someone needs to surrender to that still, small voice. And I remember one day we had been walking for many hours, and you noticed that I had slowed under the weight of the pack that I was carrying. You silently took my pack from me and slowed your pace to match mine. It is in those moments I am reminded that in this journey of life, it is not a solitary one. We all need people to remind us there is a way free from the burdens and when we go astray as well. When life is heavy with all that we seem to carry in our minds and our bodies are weary and troubles seem all the way around us. My life and the lives of many others are freer, lighter, and more meaningful because of you. When I have told people to live life more abundantly, it is you I was thinking of. Peter, I have watched you intently, coming to understand that faith isn't something that arrives one day like a package, but rather it's like a muscle that grows and expands and comes to life when it's flexed. I want to make sure that you hold on to that fount of faith that you have helped me to have and experience in life. At times, you have been impetuous, strong-willed, and yet even courageous. But I see you making peace with challenges that have come your way and remaining steadfast with a faith that absolutely knows God is present. And you have shown me that it becomes the activity of trusting and committing to a constant listening to that eternal voice within that helps me develop that faith. Peter, you are the rock of staying in that place of grace within each of us that directs us. That place that never changes, that is God, that directs us to live as generosity, as love, harmony, and peace, all things of the heaven consciousness. Judas, you somehow managed to bring out the best and the worst in those around you. That's not a criticism. It's exactly the opposite. You're generally misunderstood, and that saddens me because I know that you want nothing more than to be understood, to be seen, and when needed, to be forgiven. Because it's so hard for you to do that for yourself. When you act in ways that aren't expressing your true self. Your presence invokes in others their own power to express the activity of God, which is life itself, in all its ways of expressing. And it reminds us of the great responsibility that we have to, just for being here, just for the presence of life within us, and that is to acknowledge that we are our brothers and our sisters' keeper. You wake people up to this idea, you push them into action, and that can be unsettling. And also, for people, it can put them off. Most of us don't want to be that responsible every day. And yet, we were created for these times. You remind us of that we are indeed equipped. I am forever changed because of your ability to express the activity of God life with such intensity and commitment. Sometimes it is overwhelming for you. I know that. And you retreat and you make yourself small, denying all that you know to be true. It is in those moments that you do things that you will regret. And when this happens, I hope you remember that pattern of life that is possessed by God within you, so that your life will flow freely once again. I wonder if you fear that people don't see you, James, son of Alphaeus, or that you don't know how much your presence really matters. Perhaps it's because you are like that hidden, natural, ordered current that flows deeply through our life. You seem to have mastered being in alignment with God's laws, which cannot be seen but are felt. In your quietness and even sometimes obscurity, always staying in the background, you have shown us clearly how to organize ideas and create our experiences living out of spiritual truth and principles of God. It is a gift, my friend. Many of us forget this when life becomes messy and confusing. And I know for me, I probably would have gotten lost in the details if it hadn't been for you. When I realize what's going on, I look at you and I exhale a sigh of relief. While we recognize that growth and moving on is always occurring, rarely do I find someone who so readily embodies that growth without struggling. Divine order is one of the most challenging of the laws of God. Most of us wrestle with resisting. I am eternally grateful for you showing me another way of being with the unfolding of the kingdom of God. I've always wondered, what was it in your childhood, Matthew, that brings such a willful soul? Well, whatever it was, I want you to hear me now. I am grateful. Through the power of your will, you have moved all of us into action over these years. When we were weary, you directed us, made decisions for our well-being, listened and then supported us as we each made choices for what was we needed to go and what we needed to do in our lives. And what makes this so remarkable is that when you first joined us, the last thing that seemed to interest you was caring for another person. Many times over the years, I have relished watching you as you move more and more into a place of humility. You learn to see yourself through the eyes of others, opening the eyes of your heart. And immediately, for some reason, you could show us how to make that choice and do it. Matthew, you have been my compass for the will of God. In some of my darkest moments, it is your willingness to walk in truth that has allowed me to take the next step when I was so tired. Truly, I knew that in those moments, Spirit filled you, and I could see a living God. There are other things you could have done in this lifetime, things that would have brought less pain, less frustration, less controversy, but you chose to follow the way of life with me. Charming, strong Andrew, you were the first. I extended my hand to you and you said yes. A strength like no other has been your foundation, and therefore mine. I could not imagine walking this journey without you by my side. How many times have you listened to my frustration and upset for those who were unwilling to help those who were in need, or who were unable to accept the love that we offered? How many times have you silently witnessed my own doubts or fears and then gently whispered words that I didn't even know I needed to hear? You are not alone. I will hold you if you fall. This is what we are meant to do for each other. Strength of body, mind, and heart. And each time I looked at you over the past few years, I have seen the purity of your steadfast perseverance that carries you through so many difficulties, and us. You remind me and those around you, our strength comes from our joys and our suffering. Holding on to that, knowing that, is the guide through all of our dark times, and ultimately to the remembrance that God is with us in those times too. I have loved you from the beginning, my friends. You've seen life knock me down, but you have taught me over and over to align my heart and mind with spirit and choose to get up again. This Passover, I celebrate the gifts you have blessed me with. I know you will continue to bless the world by giving it what it so desperately needs in your own unique ways. Remember, we are each beautiful lights, brightly shining, possibilities infinitely, lighting the ways for each other and for those around us. I want you to know this is who you have been for me, and you have made the world better for it. May each of you listening now know those moments of a greater reality in the presence. God bless you.